Hey guys, and welcome to my tutorial. Today we're going to be talking about Loopcloud's Drum VST. Huge thanks to Loopcloud for sponsoring today's video. I've had some great fun playing with their stuff before, so I'm excited to play around with Drum today. So the Drum VST is actually free as part of the Loopcloud subscription. And the Drum VST is created to help you make the most out of your sample service. So whether you use Splice or Loopcloud or any other sample service, it's going to help you make the most of it. So in most genres, especially what I do, drum and bass, drums are obviously one of the biggest parts of electronic music. Having a good drum kit, having good samples, having good levels, a good mix is really, really key to having good power in your track and making something sound professional. Usually, in my opinion, when a track has weak drums or a weak mix around the drums, it can really make a track fall flat. And there are two main ways of doing your drums. One is placing your drums directly onto the sequencer in audio form. And the second method is using a sampler. Now, there are other methods out there, but for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to be talking about those two today. They each have their own benefits, and you can even mix and match. For example, when I do drums, I personally use audio for my kick and snare, and then I usually use samplers and instrument VSTs for my hats and percussions. Audio on the sequencer has its benefits of being able to see the waveform usually, having a bit more precise control over the tails and the attacks, being able to see phase alignment directly in the sequencer when you're lining things up. And using a sampler has its benefits of being able to swap out a sample for the entire track if you want to make one change, as opposed to putting audio clips in your sequencer where if you want to change a snare or kick, you're going to have to change every single sample that you put down. You also can change the pitch a lot more easily. And in softwares like Reason, where you can't allow it to stretch the audio when you change the pitch up and down, the transients when you're changing the pitch can be messed up if you do it in audio. So using a sampler will actually alleviate that. There are a bunch more benefits, but I think the primary benefit for me on the sampler over audio is being able to quickly switch through samples and find ones that fit better in the track very quickly without having to redo the sequencer. It makes it a ton faster when you're trying to make an idea and just get going, and you don't have to faff around with the sequencer too much. Okay, so let's get started. So we'll start off by dragging in Loopcloud Drum, and then it'll probably ask me to link to Loopcloud when I open it. There we go. So that's loading Loopcloud itself, and then it wants to ask me to link. So 5 steps. So first, let's connect with the Loopcloud to your DAW. So I'll hit next. So it says open your DAW, then load the Loopcloud plugin onto an instrument channel. So we'll load that like here. Okay, hit next. So it's going to give us a tutorial. So we're going to look for some genres. So if I'm going to do some drum and bass, I'll find drum and bass right here. Click that, make our first search. Let's look for a kick. And we'll have a bunch of kicks. So we'll see a bunch of different ones here. We can hit play to hear it. Cool. We can hit next, and then we can also set a key. So when we're looking for bass samples and any samples that have a key, we can select what key we're working in, and it will automatically pitch that to the key. So if we click here, we can set this. Let's just go to F sharp and then hit next. And then this is the cool part. So Loopcloud allows you to add your existing samples into your library, so you can actually use it as a sample browsing tool to use with Loopcloud Drum. So I found my samples folder, and I'm going to click select folder, and then it'll probably take a few seconds to import. So now that I've got all my samples analyzed in Loopcloud, I'm going to get going with exploring some of the kits they have to offer. So if you didn't see my previous tutorial, we learned that you can pretty much, work inside Loopcloud inside your DAW as like its own standalone mini DAW basically, which is really cool. So what we'll do is we'll probably start to build a kit inside this and then export it onto the track. So if I click up here, we can browse the kind of kits they've got. So you have the store, you have the starter kits, you have the saved kits, and then you have the ones that you've purchased. So if we go to the store, we can go through and have a look. Let's look at what this is like. Okay. Okay, so it sounds like it could be something good. All right, so let's see how we can sequence this. So we'll start with a kick. So we've got a pattern roll down here. Okay. Okay, and if we press play in the sequencer, then it will start playing. Make sure my sub pack is on so I can feel the lows. So we can clear the sequencer here. All right, so we've cleared that sequencer now. So what we could do is start doing this. So if we put the velocity up, okay, we're going to have that looping. Let's go to the snare. So we'll do the snares. Okay, so this is pretty easy. Just vary the velocity a bit for the hats. You can swap the first hit with an open. Could do another. Go back to the kick. Get out another kick in. I guess we can nudge it forward or back for the whole kick. That's really cool. We can obviously do A and B, I guess, here. So let's see if we can change B up as well. Yeah, so if you have pattern order on, then it will do A and B, but for now we'll just do A. So you have all the envelope settings, the volume, pan, sample start. So if you had something like this effect, you could change the sample start here. So it start later. You've also got filter, so you can low cut, high cut things. You can overdrive them. And you've got a classic envelope, choke group. What is this? There we go. That's what I thought it would do. So what choke group does is that if you have a certain sample, when you hit the other one, it's going to choke this sample. So I'm guessing these are on choke group 1. Yeah. So that, for example, when the hi-hat is happening, if you hit the closed hat, it will choke it. Same will happen there. This is useful for open hats and stuff if you want it to choke the sample and it doesn't ring out. And what does the roll do? I'm guessing the roll does, like, it makes the kick or the sample just kind of roll here. So let's see. Yeah. That'd be useful for like hats and stuff. So if you want to add some kind of interesting kind of stuff for like trap and stuff. Like that. Now I gotta wonder why this is, oh, it's being choked. There we go. This is like a rim shot and this is like a snare. So what we could do is find some different samples once we've got a good pattern. So what we could do is let's do A and B. So we'll copy A over to B and then we'll get rid of this sample here. Let's add some shakers here. So we'll do some shakers. Let's change the hat sound. So we can randomize this. And I guess it's searching my whole library. We can refine the search as well. So we can do instrument, close hi-hat, and then genre is drum and bass. So it's only going to search for these two different things here. So we could even refine this by, like, you know, adding a different genre. So we could do this and we could select any of this. We could even put a dubstep hat in or something and then hit the randomize and it will search for a random sound. And this could be really cool for finding some, you know, interesting sounds and rediscovering your own sample library as well. So right now it's only choosing between two hats because I guess that's all we've got right now in our library. It's probably not searching through our local samples just yet. Okay, let's get rid of the genre tag because I guess it's because we've only got 2 drum and bass samples. Oh, see here, I think it's looking through all my closed hats on my actual samples. Ah. What we could do is we could actually make the close hat be quarters instead of this. We'll edit B as well. Yeah, we could have a little kind of roll at the end there. Let's switch this up. Let's switch to kick. So many kicks that I've never heard before. We could look at some new samples as well. Okay. So to load the sample, you just drag it over from Loopcloud or just drag any sample onto the pad. Okay, so the send effects and the master effects, you've got a drive on the master here, you got a filter, and then there's limiting. So with this hit drum, we could probably get the release a bit of the K, I guess. Let's find a different snare. Let's mute this. We'll get rid of the drum bass search. I like that they have a back button, so that if you go run past the snare. There's so many of these I've never heard before. It's really interesting to dive back into your content, like library. Tells me I need to go refine my samples. I might end up going and like getting all my favorite snares and kicks and putting them in the folder for that. Oh, I like that. I want to have like a nice ghost note snare with that. I like the little transient that this adds. Let's have a look at the mixer because I feel like we got a reverb on it. So how do we see the send? Oh, here we go. Here's the send. That's a bit better. Might bring down the decay a bit. I really like that. That's quite tight. Let's have a look at the kick again and maybe play with. We can let that kind of be a bit longer, and let's increase the kick. Cool. So we can have literally a bit more of a play, maybe with some of the effect stuff. Let's have a look at what other random effects we can get. So let's put an effect like here and here, or maybe on the offbeats or something. We can actually change this instrument. Let's see. We could change this to some kind of percussion, maybe. Well, we could just do percussion in general, I guess. I'm turning the pattern off so it just loops. Let's change the delay a bit. Take out the lows on that and turn the pattern order back on. That sounds cool. We could try some shuffles now. Let's do some higher levels and then we'll bring down. Sounding cool. Let's swap out this kick for another break snare. Okay, cool. So what we could do is we could do this and then layer this with some other kind of break layer underneath to kind of fill in the gaps and make it sound a bit more natural. So let's do that. So I'm guessing to save this, we can save the kit. So I'll say this proto kit. So I'll save that and then let's export this and we can render the audio or the MIDI. Let's do the MIDI. Hit the render MIDI. And then I guess we can show this in Loopcloud. There you go. And I guess we can just drag this MIDI in. Like that. That should work. So if I turn off the sequencer, it won't loop. But then if I have a look at here, that's cool. So yeah, it's got my thing here, and then we've got all the different velocities and stuff. So we could end up changing this as well. So we could export this as audio as well. So if I say export audio mixdown, render again. Let's see. There you go. So now it's rendered that. If I tell it that. Cool. I want to see if there's some external outs on this as well, on the Loopcloud Drum. We have the optional audio outs. Are we able to route those? Oh, okay. So if we do the export and then sample, we can click on these and render them. And then I guess we can export those. So what else do we have we need to do? We need to do this percussion. Render that. And then render. I guess we just render all of them. And we can hit the show in Loopcloud once they're processed. So yeah, there we go. We've processed all of these. So what you could do, I guess, is if you wanted to have certain parts soloed, you could do, for example, if you wanted to have the kick, you could solo it and then render the audio with the sequencer on, and then that should give you a kick render here. Yeah. That gives you the kick, so you could drag that in, and you can drag in your separate parts. So like if we do the kick, we can do snares. So we could layer them together, or we could solo them. So we could do render. We could just render all of these and just have each individual layer if you want to process those after in audio. An option to be able to do render the stems might be nice, to be able to just render these out in bulk. But yeah, so far, like the ability to kind of, hear samples that I've had, for a while and just haven't had a chance to explore or play around with is actually really, really interesting. So there we go. We have all of our loops here. If I just drag these in. There we go. So now we mute the MIDI and mute the thing. This is all the stems together without the sequencer on, sorry. The only thing I guess here is that it's not choking the hats. So what we could do is we could solo the hats together. So we'll solo these two hats and then we'll render this so that it's choking them properly. And we'll do the same for the snares as well. There we go. That's all done. So now do a tiny bit of transient shaping. Doesn't really need much. I think it's fine as is. A pretty short kick already, so we'll leave it at that. And we'll compress it. Pull that transient out. If we really want to, we could play with something like disperser on the bottom. I don't really want that kind of sound. Layer the snare a bit. Let's just compress this a tiny bit. Just to bring out that room. All right, and what we'll do is we'll actually EQ this shaker a bit. So let's layer in a break layer here. So we'll just have a look here and find something that works. Maybe something like that will work. We'll just get an EQ. Cool, and we'll just copy the loop to track and we'll sidechain it. Kind of want to do some shorter decays here. I'm not sure I like the ride symbol on this, so we'll have a look and see if there's another one that I like better. Let's try that. So we'll copy these over. And then we'll copy this. Copy loop to track. And then what we'll do is we'll sidechain the snares and kicks so that they're not competing. So we'll just set up a sidechain here. And then we'll do that real quick using my sidechain patch. So we'll set up the MIDI trigger. This is for the kick drum. And we'll set one up for the snare drum. Snare drum here. And we'll copy the kick drum over. duplicate that. So now all we have to do is just drag this sidechain over. Like that. Now we're sidechained. So if we sidechain this rhythm here to get rid of the kick drum, and the same with the snare, make sure we're actually getting rid of that transient. So we could have both. So that sounds quite nice. But we could actually go a bit louder with this, so let's just add in some, saturate a tiny bit. That sounds better. Now we got a nice little drum rhythm. This snare could definitely use a bit more punch, not this layer, but this one. What we'll do is we will just do a tiny bit of shaping on that. Maybe do a dynamic EQ as well on the fundamental. Just a tiny bit, and then we'll do some transient shaping. Maybe a bit more bite on the top. Just adds a bit more snappiness to it. And for simplicity's sake, we'll chuck in some basses and some sounds from Loopcloud as well, just so we can flesh it out into a track. Alright, so let's sidechain these basses. So we'll just attach sidechains to these. Also, give me some feedback in the comments if you want me to go over like my sidechain patch and how I use it. Now we just level these things out. So we'll bring these basses up so that we can see them. We could do some saturation. We could add in some movement with some thermal. We could try that and maybe get rid of the delays. So we're going to route this to a new bus. Cool. So we'll route that to a new bus real quick. And we're going to process these together. And we're going to just compress this. Maybe sort out the mid-range a bit. I'd probably swap the basses out on a lot of these. This is just very quickly, you know, just doing this to show the drums in context. just to double check that the sidechain's hitting right. Just make sure. Yeah, we're in the right spot. So. So yeah, there you go. All right, I hope I showed you how you can use Loopcloud Drum to spice up your drum sample selection, find out about some samples that you have deep in your collection that you might not even know about, and all the samples you can grab from Loopcloud itself. Thanks again to Loopcloud for sponsoring this video. And also, if you want to support me directly, please check out my Patreon. You can get exclusive rewards like stems to my songs. We have exclusive stickers as well that you can only get from Patreon. These are just 2 of them. Samples, exclusive live streams, meetups, and most of all early music that you usually get to hear weeks or months in advance. So big love to all my patrons, especially Dutek, who's on one of my higher tiers. And also, if you want to get one-on-one tutoring, you can email me at alex@protostar.co.uk. You can also get it on my Patreon as well. Much love. See you in the next one.